Dan, so a lot to go through here. So just set the scene for us first off. What went wrong in Crown over several years?
It is hard to know where to start. Crown expanded into China and illegally promoted gambling over there, leading to a score of its employees being detained. Over a long period of time, at different locations, it facilitated money laundering. It knew about it on an epic and truly rampant scale. It deceived and bullied regulators. It breached responsible gambling laws. It diddled the Victorian state government out of potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in tax through spurious deductions. The scale and kind of epic breadth of what Crown has done wrong, illegal conduct fueled by essentially putting profits above doing the right thing and following the law and complying with its licence, a licence to print money, truly on an astonishing scale, detailed in inquiries in New South Wales, now the findings of a Royal Commission in Victoria, and an ongoing investigation where it also operates in Western Australia. What we see now are the findings and recommendations of that Royal Commission run by former Judge Ray Finkelstein, which held public hearings in Melbourne and expanded upon what we already found out from the Bergen inquiry in New South Wales. Took it further into breaches of responsible gambling laws, an inability to essentially keep up with the very liberal constraints of its contract here, and essentially not working in the interests of the people of Victoria, which was kind of the core of the contract that it got for the state's sole casino licence. Crown is a massive entity in Victoria, a huge employer, the biggest single site employer in Victoria and potentially the country, with around 12,000 employees. 3 hotels, a conference centre, a massive centre, a huge draw for international tourists when they're able to return to Victoria. And the government has...
So if Crown's conduct has been so disgraceful as outlined in this report, why is it being allowed to continue operating?
I don't know. Having started to read the 652-page report, it opens with the words, "Is Crown Melbourne a suitable person to hold a casino licence?" And the answer is one word: no. So this is almost like Donald Trump talking about being able to shoot someone on Fifth Avenue. Crown has been showed and is detailed in this report and the New South Wales report to have engaged in epic facilitation of money laundering, consorting with junket operators linked to known criminal gangs, facilitating breaches of the law within its buildings and within its activities. So it's really surprising when you read through the detail in this Royal Commission report that their recommendation is that special monitor to essentially oversee the operation of the casino. You heard from Gaming Minister Melissa Horne just there, essentially saying that person, Stephen O'Brien, a former anti-corruption judge, will have 2 years to essentially see if they're a fit and proper person. That's kind of surprising. We've just had a Royal Commission that looks at that, and the first word they said is no. So we're still deciphering this Royal Commission and the response from the government, who've said they'll implement all of its recommendations.
And so this is just evolving as we're speaking, Dan, so I don't know about how much detail you're across, but take us through what you know about the Royal Commission findings and the government's response.
So the government has said they will enact all of the recommendations. As we go through them, this special monitor does have vast powers. They essentially get to sit in, but not vote on, board decisions. They get to sit in management meetings. They can request and compel people to give them information. And at the end of it, they'll produce a report. The regulator will then have another 90 days to decide whether to act on that report and what to do about it. But much like when we talked during the Banking Royal Commission, a lot of these recommendations that you see written down, you can't quite believe you have to write this stuff down.
Yeah.
You know, recommendations are things like Crown must not lie to investigators. Crown must be frank and open. When inspectors are investigating crimes within the casino, Crown must give them access to the security cameras and the information that Crown has about the people who are there. There are all of these recommendations that seem so plainly obvious that the fact you have to write them down says everything about how the company has performed and how they've dealt with regulators and inspectors in the past.
And has the government conceded that there were significant, huge problems with the previous body and this new regulator is going to be established?
They've essentially disbanded the regulator. They created a massive regulator that looked over liquor and gaming. So everything from a cafe wanting to serve alcohol and Crown Casino were looked after by the same body. It is not a surprise that that did not work. You may have seen a Four Corners earlier this year where whistleblowers from that regulator basically said they were forced to stop investigating Crown. And as you can see from the Royal Commission's findings, Crown did not cooperate with those investigators. In fact, they bullied, they hid information, they lied to the regulator. So the regulator is being born anew again, and we'll have to wait and see whether that regulator has any teeth and any willingness to sink them into Crown when Crown is doing the wrong thing. An important qualification, which also links back to the Banking Royal Commission, Crown will now have to report breaches itself. Previously, it had to self-report them, but essentially there was no penalty for not doing so. Now, if something bad happens at Crown, if they break the law, they have to tell the regulator in a timely manner, and there's a penalty for not doing so. So these are baby steps, but as ever, as you read the recommendations, you just shake your head and think, if this stuff has to be written down, the problems extend so far, you wonder how they can possibly fix it.
And in that media conference, the gaming minister was talking about increasing fines tenfold. I think she mentioned the figure $800 million. So can you tell us anything about those plans with fines?
Look, the fines will clearly increase, and clearly they need to. Without regulation, without effective regulation, without regulation that has teeth or an actual penalty, what happens is businesses do what makes money. Businesses will cut corners, businesses will do the wrong thing, particularly if the penalty, the potential fine, is a pittance compared to what you could make. So Crown has shown itself here, and is detailed in this Royal Commission, to have engaged in disgraceful behaviour, disgraceful conduct. And yet, in the next breath, it is given another chance, essentially a 2-year lifeline and more time after that, to prove itself to be the fit and proper person that it is not now to run the licence. So we'll see what they do.
And Dan, being a business reporter, you're very familiar with the term too big to fail. And so does that spring to mind when you were reading this report and reading through what the government response is going to be?
So the theory of too big to fail is essentially an organisation can't fall over because it is the entire system. You know, we saw this kind of during the GFC, the global financial crisis, where some substantial banks were essentially bailed out by the taxpayer because them falling over would lead to the collapse of the entire system. I don't quite understand it with Crown. Crown is massive, and certainly Melbourne's casino is one of the largest in the world. But there are many casino operators who would love to run it. It is not as though there aren't other casino operators in the world. So it is in many ways a strange decision, but Crown gets another chance to prove itself right. It's been shown that essentially maybe the government thinks it's too big to fail, that it is too much of an employer, and this is too precarious an economic time to have that change. So we'll see through the recommendations as we continue to trawl through them, if there are more safeguards for the people of Victoria who have, as it has already been noted, been dudded by at least $60 million in state tax by the organisation. We'll find out if those safeguards are there, but at this stage it looks like Crown will continue in an almost unchanged form.
And Dan, in his description of the word disgraceful, the Royal Commissioner listed a number of descriptions, and among them was illegal. Have there already been people face criminal charges over what Crown has done? And is it likely that there could be any criminal charges that flow from this Royal Commission report?
So the nation's most feared regulator is called AUSTRAC. They essentially look at financial transactions, particularly to do with money laundering and the financing of terrorism. They are taken extremely seriously. They have given out the largest fines in Australian corporate history to Westpac and the Commonwealth Bank, more than $1 billion for Westpac. They have also prosecuted people criminally for those crimes. It is very difficult to see how anyone from Crown will be held criminally liable for the anti-money laundering laws that they have broken, but that is in many ways to do with the kind of diffuse way that white-collar crime is dealt with. But there will be ongoing AUSTRAC scrutiny and investigations and potentially prosecutions with regards to that anti-money laundering breaches. We'll see if they decide to individualise that and focus on senior executives as well.
Okay, Dan, I'll let you get back to looking through that Royal Commission report. Is it a significant report? Have you seen how big it is yet?
It is 652 pages. I'm about 50 pages in. There's a lot to get through. But look, it remains astonishing. All the evidence was presented in public. Everything you heard at the New South Wales inquiry, and then more on top. So the fact that Crown is able to keep its licence when in New South Wales they denied Crown a licence to open based on just what they had, not even the extra information that's been uncovered in Victoria, is astonishing and shows you a big divide between the states, between what could have been a casino and what actually is and employs people and exists right now. That is probably the difference, but we'll find out as we dig through.
Okay, really good to have your analysis, Dan, and we'll let you get back to those 650 pages of that report.